Recording on. Whenever you're ready. Have a go.
This is Liz Bendit from thebombbox.com, and you're listening to Vroom Vroom Veer with Jeff Smith, reminding you to buy functional care packages for cancer patients.
Well done. I kind of like mine better, but it's all good. It's yours. So, okay, I'm going to hit stop. I'll be right back.
Are you ready to thoughtfully steer away from your revved up, frenzied, and far too often scripted life? Then welcome to Vroom Vroom Veer with Jeff Smith, where he guides you down the road differently traveled by sharing unique experiences with guests who have managed to shift away from a life stuck on cruise control and veered their way into a more authentic and fulfilling one in all sorts of interesting and kind of remarkable ways. Get ready to Vroom Vroom Veer with your differently traveled road chauffeur, Jeff Smith.
Myron Welik, a.k.a. the Jackhammer. Thank you so much for being on Vroom Vroom Veer and welcome to the show. How's it going, man?
It's going great. Thank you so much for having me, Jeff. I really, really appreciate it. And when come December or February or January, you being in Las Vegas, I will be very envious. I love Montreal dearly, but, you know, it's not exactly Las Vegas, LA weather here in December or January. But as they say, it is what it is.
It is what it is. So you are in Montreal, not that
Correct.
far from New York.
No, New York, Toronto. No, I'm not that far from New York on the East Coast.
Right.
It's an hour and a half plane drive. I think a 8 hour car drive. We're near Boston, Philly. No, we're on the East Coast, very much.
Right. So let's talk about this Jackhammer Effect book / podcast. So what's going on?
Yeah. So basically, it initially it started in 2020 really because I never did a podcast in my life, but I didn't think it was impossible, and we all remember the lockdowns of 2020 and 2021, I guess.
Sure.
So it's pretty scary and pretty challenging. So it forced I guess it forced people to hopefully adapt as best they could.
Yeah.
And part of my adapting was I said, you know what? Let me, I love podcasting. Let me take a shot in this. And I'm called AKA the Jackhammer, and it was just about I haven't done as many recently, but about trying to find people primarily, in business, but not exclusively.
Okay.
Entrepreneurial, meaning that they were doing something on their own. So it could have been an artist, and it could have been a business, comedians, interviewing people that I certainly thought were not necessarily newsworthy, but interesting, fascinating, and inspiring. God knows that we were a very short supply of inspiration and
True.
That good stuff, positive stuff. That was obviously rightly so in short supply. These people were powerful weapons for that, if I can use that expression.
You can.
So that's what it's about, trying to interview people that try to look at know that there is a dark side of the street, but try to keep as much focus on the sunny side. It's the only way you get anything done. And then from that, or around the same time, just before, I published the book, Jackhammer Effect podcast book.
Right.
How to break down doors and make business deals happen for those who cannot. And basically, it's just like a how-to, walk me through, very simple, very easy to read and understand on Amazon. If anybody's interested, quick read.
Right.
You can start at page 10, go to page 50, go back to page 30, that kind of book.
Right.
And it walks you through the steps, basically, of starting a business or starting or seeking an opportunity, how to identify it, where to go, where to look, what to do, execution, and then closing. It talks about our sales, and it talks about strategic partnerships, which I'm an expert in, and it's been a big part of my life.
Right.
I brought together Heidi Klum and New Balance.
Maybe we'll do that story. That sounds like a fun story.
Yeah. That was big.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
So that's the book and the podcast, and that was it. That was exciting. And then the Heidi Klum and the Balance, just quickly to tell you, is I think it was 2010, 2012, and Heidi Klum was still married to Seal at that time. She has not been for a while, and she's just finishing the pregnancy of her last child, and the people I was working with had the maternity rights. She's pregnant, but 9 months, that's done. What do you do now? She was still a very, I think she was just on American Got Talent then, but she was a very well-known individual, not
Sure.
just for her model. She's a brilliant, besides beautiful, a brilliant individual, a brilliant businesswoman, tremendous amount of respect for her, tremendous. And she, they were looking for other opportunities, which is normal. And I came up, well, how about a tie-up with a running shoe? And at that time, the whole Lululemon, if you know, athlete leisure is called as a category, was kind of exploding. Lululemon still is leading the way, a tremendous company. Other people were jumping on the bandwagon, rightly so, which creating the gym and the workout and apparel particularly for women, and Nike, Adidas, and I proposed maybe we try to form a partnership with New Balance. New Balance is a tremendous company. By most world people standards, I think it's $3 or $4 billion today.
Wow.
It's a private company. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Back then it was $2.5 billion, but it was small, not small compared to 99% of the world, but small compared to Nike or Adidas, which is like 35, 40, 50, who God knows what they are, billion today. And they were. And so I did my research. And talking to these guys was like talking to God, literally. They weren't going to talk to me, and also they were sharp enough and aggressive enough in who they were, and they were already onto it in their own way. But New Balance was New Balance was a private company based in world headquarters in Boston, Mass.
Okay.
And a great company, phenomenal, great quality shoe, as most, I'm sure everybody in your audience knows. Under the radar, it didn't sponsor at that point many athletes, not like the Michael J. Didn't go that way. I know that's changed somewhat, but certainly didn't go the Nike or Adidas route. So it was under the radar, low, but tremendous quality. It's been around 100 years, believe it or not. But the person who owned it just bought it in the 70s or 80s. It was really under the radar. And they didn't have much in female apparel. They had really nothing. They sucked. I guess they maybe knew, but there wasn't much initiative. They didn't really have anything.
Right.
They had a little bit. I mean, their business is running shoes or sneakers, whatever. But they were missing out. I thought this was an opportunity, timing, the right players. So I said, let's try to reach out to New Balance. I want to emphasize I knew nobody in New Balance, which is most of all of my strategic partnerships. I do it the hard way.
Right. Okay.
I don't know anybody. I wish I did, but I didn't.
Okay.
So I suggested that to Heidi and the other people involved. They loved the idea, but they correctly said, well, who the hell Myron knows at New Balance? He doesn't know anybody. So if he doesn't know anybody, what's his chances of getting into a big company like that? I mean, they are a major corporation.
Right.
And the people I was working for said, probably for most people not, but I wouldn't be surprised if Myron did it. Okay. Let's give it.
Okay. So you had kind of a reputation out already there.
Yeah, I did. They know if anybody could do it. So a couple of months later, after a lot of perseverance and homework and trying to figure out who the right people, leaving the messages and following up. This is 2010, 11 or 12, I don't remember. I finally connected to the right person. A year later, a couple of months later, we all went down, not Heidi Klum, but our people went down to Boston, had the meetings, subsequent meetings. And the end of the story, about a year and change later, the deal was made. And the first shipment went out, I don't know, a year and a half, 2 years, I don't recall, to Amazon. And so if I think it's still around now. If you go and Google on New Balance, HKNB, Heidi Klum New Balance, you'll see running shoes and apparel. So that was that.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was exciting. Yeah.
See, so you just sort of I kind of had an aha as you're talking about that. It doesn't really have much to do with Myron, right? Myron is just figuring out that New Balance is losing out on, this niche market, right? And Heidi Klum is looking for something to do. That might be a good opportunity,
It's very much me, if
you saw an opportunity. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I did, and I'm not shy to go after whoever it is to go after, no matter who they are. I mean,
right.
The worst they can do is say no. So
exactly. Nothing ventured, nothing gained, right?
Exactly. And there's other players. And I knew, quite frankly, just take yourself out of the equation. Even now, they needed someone like Heidi Klum. She had tremendous celebrity and status of public awareness.
Right.
And it was a powerful figure that could skyrocket the business quickly and help design it. And they were the ones that could do it, even though clothing wasn't their biggest forte, but you didn't have to be a rocket scientist to figure it out, which they did. And that they're a solid, proven quality running shoe company, which we all know. So it was a great little marriage.
Yeah.
And they both knew that, and it made sense. And they both needed each other, which is, of course, the basis. And they both complemented and made each other better and stronger and more prosperous, which is the basis of any marriage, whether it's a man and a woman, a woman, a man and a man,
right,
or businesses. It's really
creating that win-win kind of idea.
It's got to be win-win. Otherwise, it's going to be a lose-lose.
Exactly. It's got to be a win-win. So thanks, because that fun story, it's interesting because guy like me don't do deals like that. Right. So that's fun, So let's go back in time. This is Vroom Vroom Veer, right? So that means we talk about your life and mostly the times that you struggled, right? So every story has a beginning, a middle, and an ending, right? So it's like in those between an ending and a beginning and a beginning and a middle, there's the lessons to be learned. So
Heidi Klum was still part of the struggle. I lost everything in 2002.
Yeah, let's go back to that 2002 and what happened?
Well, I lost the business, and it was gone. I lost it, and I hit rock bottom. That's what happened, emotionally and financially and everything.
Right.
And then for the next
16 years, right?
I struggled working odd jobs. This was one of them. I did shoe cleaning in airports. I did washing offices cleaning offices at midnight.
Wow.
Yeah, I did a lot of just odd jobs. Nothing happened to me. Really. The life really
you were just struggling to find yourself again, huh?
Yeah, struggling to find myself. That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah, I get it.
But it was more than a struggle. It was a very it was a do or die. It was an emotional, serious struggle. I mean, I was lucky in the sense of one thing, a couple of things to learn and share with your audience is that it helps if you have it. Someone that loves you and still there with you, you can be very lucky because if you're doing it alone, it's like you're going through any challenge or problem alone. It's even worse.
Right.
Or whoever you're with abandons you. So I was very fortunate. Laura, my wife, stood by me. We've been married 36 years. And
right.
She's from Brooklyn, New York, by the way. And that was a big help. But at the end of the day, I still had to take care of me. And one of the things I've learned in retrospect, which I'd love to share with you guys, which I'm writing about it now, is called 40 Ways to Stay Young. So one of the things I did when I really could never get out of bed, I was all kinds of pills, and it was really a very bad seed, very bad. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy.
Right.
Well, maybe I would then, but I really wouldn't. No. That's
maybe.
Because sometimes emotional paralysis or emotional pain could be a lot worse than physical, but it could come and go. I understand physical could be permanent. So they're both bad, very bad, but they ruin your lives. There's no question. If you can't overcome it, it ruins your life. You're done. And
right.
Sooner or later, you're going to die and it's over. So comes a time when it's too late. I hate to sound morbid, but that's the bottom line.
It's true.
But having that, I kept going for 10 years, Jeff. I kept going to networking events and meetups where, as you know, the vast, vast majority of people at these events are in their 20s and 30s. It's mostly tech orientated. Okay.
Right.
We're talking about new tech opportunities, and it was growing. And these people at this age are only consumed with the future. There's a famous book with a famous expression, that the person is filled with the future. I love that. And that's what these people were. There wasn't really much of a past, entrepreneurial speaking, at
right.
20-something, 30-something.
Yeah. So they were in high school, right?
They were in college or they were on the working, but they were starting their careers.
Right.
So figuring it out, which was great. So a lot of that magic, I call it magic dust, wore off on me because I just mainly went to listen. I didn't participate much, listen. And by listening, by going, I got inspired. I got rejuvenated. It was the best medicine I ever took.
Okay. So because the energy in those rooms are really uplifting. Right.
Yeah, the optimism was unparalleled.
It's we're going to change the world. Yeah, exactly.
That's what you need.
Yeah.
You don't want to talk to anybody 50, 60, or 70 because that'd be too depressing. So you're not going to do that. Not that.
Right.
Everybody has different priorities at different stages of their life, and that's normal. So that was a bit, and I've wrote, 40 ways to stay young, because of that I learned, and the most important thing I learned, I wrote many different things, but 40. But the end of it, the last one is, which is coming out, is stay amazed. So if you can stay amazed, which is much harder, like everything else in life, easier said than done.
Right.
But
true.
Everything is easier said than done. But that's why you have to try to discipline, because everything is easier said than done. All advice is. But that's why you have to work all the harder to try to, make it what works for you, find it, because you either find a way, make a way, or you're going to surrender and die. And that hopefully is not an option.
Definitely.
So if you stay amazed, that means you're curious, you're excited by even simple and mundane things. And that becomes a trigger, a catalyst.
Right.
To keep you going, doing whatever you're doing,
Right.
If you could wonder, awe, whatever it is, whether it's the beach like you have in the Californias, the Caribbean, whether it's the mountains of Washington or around the world, whatever it is, or the history or the achievements or a business or a person, it doesn't matter what it is. Just be amazed.
Yeah.
That is versus the other option, which is not an option, where you are just either jaded or you become, when someone is neutral or jaded or empty, that's the worst scenario. Of course, that's the worst scenario.
Right.
So that's the worst case. That's really a prerequisite for bad stuff. So I think that's the most. So I wrote that, and one of the secrets was, and I didn't even know it then. It wasn't. I didn't do it purposely. I just did it, just impulsively. Stay young. And that's the way I stay young. I mean, you can go to gyms, you can do your diet. There's a million different ways.
Right.
But that's the way I stayed young.
Be around young people. Yeah.
At that, for what I needed.
Yeah. So let's, eventually we're going to get back to the now and talk about your real estate investment.
Yeah.
Because that sounds really interesting to me.
It's not my investment. It's what I help.
Yeah.
I'm what they call a business development expert.
Okay.
Help people find business opportunities. I help strategic partnerships, and I help people find real estate opportunities.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. That's what you got going on now.
That's what I have going on now.
I got it. Yeah.
So real estate is one of them.
Okay.
No question. Where they find opportunities that make, hopefully that they buy, that makes sense for them. That's one of the things.
Right.
I also do strategic partnerships, working for a big health company in the States and here. So what I did with Heidi Klum and New Balance, trying to put companies reach out to me, working with people to try to say, because strategic partnerships are a great way to grow cost effectively a company. So if you could find the right partners and then make it happen. So I help identify and help execute. Yeah,
for sure. So let's talk, what did you do with the New England Patriots? Because that's
what happened then. It was very interesting.
It sounds like a fun story.
Yeah, it is a fun story.
They've got a lot of money rolling around to spend, right?
Yeah, no. Yes and no. I'll tell you why. They again, this is an interesting, very much a jackhammer. So in 21 or 22, everything being online, I befriended this young lady in Los Angeles, and in a networking event, we became friends. She's in marketing in LA, and one of her clients was Seal, and Seal's a famous musician,
right?
And he lives in LA. And in talking to her, I forget exactly what happened. I said, would Seal be, because he couldn't do physical performances yet. So I guess it was sometime in 21, latest. And what happened is I said to her, Sarah, what else, is Seal open to partnerships and all that? And she said, well, he happens to like the New England Patriots. As you know, Seal's, I think, originally from England. So maybe it's not, but he's just very knowledgeable about football, extremely. So she loves the New England Patriots. So if you could reach out to them, maybe he could sing and, remote, he couldn't be there. I don't because even then, they had games, but I'm not sure if they had people in the audience. It was a
right. Yeah, there was like 1 or 2 seasons with no audience, right?
Exactly.
Lockdown. Okay.
Exactly. And so what ended up happening is, fortunately, I guess because of the COVID, everybody was working remote. So
Right.
I got in touch with the head of marketing at the Patriots on her cell. And,
Wow.
and I did. And she loved the idea. They love SEAL. So eventually, to abbreviate this, I brought them together. We had a major Zoom. SEAL, Sarah, a couple of key people in marketing in the New England Patriots, and they loved him. I mean, he was a very, very affable, self-effacing, knowledgeable guy about football. It was incredible, and he really loved it. A lot of respect for him. He's a great individual, and it was cool being about an hour on a Zoom podcast. You could imagine it was just quite exhilarating.
Yeah.
And you had one or two others, a couple of the key marketing people in the Massachusetts, I guess, New Hampshire area for the Patriots. Anyways, but at the end of the day, they wanted him, but they couldn't come to a arrangement, if you know what I mean. They couldn't come to an arrangement.
They couldn't figure it out.
They couldn't figure out the dollars. They couldn't figure out a few things.
Okay.
So unfortunately, that could be win-win for everybody. So it didn't happen. They wanted to work. He wanted to. They couldn't. Unfortunately, it didn't. But I brought them together. They had to Zoom. And the Patriots were so cool. I liked them. In thanking me and trying me, they sent me their cap. They sent me a T-shirt. They sent me all kinds, which is very cool. I still wear it now. And they know I'm in Montreal because it's a long sleeve T-shirt. But they're in Boston.
Right.
It is a short sleeve. But they're in Boston, so the weather is very similar. So they were great people, gracious. That's the story with the Patriots.
That's nice, though. I mean, it's just out of the blue, out of kind of nowhere. You've got this hidden talent of finding secret phone numbers. I guess that's pretty amazing. Yeah.
So it happened, and they were phenomenal individuals, phenomenal, and
right.
Seal was too. Unfortunately, it couldn't. That would have been cool if they did, but it was still, like I said, if you would have been kind of quietly watching the Zoom, you would have loved it too. It was great listening.
Oh yeah, I love it. So, what did you do at Madison Square Garden?
Madison Square Gardens and also owns Radio City Music Hall.
Okay.
I don't know. Not everybody knows that.
I didn't know that. No.
Yeah, most people don't. But it's the same company, I believe. And what happened then, a company out of New York reached out to me they were a travel app trying to get tourists coming to New York, which is in the millions, to use their app, with tour guides that would help them navigate their way through New York City.
Okay.
Unfortunately, quite a year or two, it didn't work. But in the interim, they reached out to me for strategic partnerships, what I do. So I reached out to, and I brought on board Madison Square Garden, Radio City Music Hall, got in touch with them, got in touch with Madame Tussaud's Wax Museum.
Okay. Wow.
Famous wax museum in New York City and Manhattan and London, England.
Right.
And a few other players, which you wouldn't have, the world most have heard of, restaurants and other appropriate potential, quite a few, I think. But the big ones were like Madison Square Gardens, which is a big one. They were great, and Madame Tussauds and Radio City Music Hall. Yeah.
So cool. The app didn't work out, but
they didn't work out. They worked, but at the end, after they couldn't get enough people using it long enough.
Oh yeah. But I mean, that's not on you. You did the partnership. Right.
But it's not unusual, Jeff.
Yeah, a lot of these apps just don't fit. They fizzle.
No, not even an app. But any businesses runs out of resources, financial. They can hard to sustain yourself.
Oh, I get
it. For any entrepreneur. It's a big challenge.
Yeah. So let's talk about this story about you meeting this guy that was doing real estate deals.
Right.
And then that is kind of like your reinvention story, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're religious or not. Are you a religious guy?
I'm spiritual, not necessarily religious, but I believe all the religions are correct.
Because some people feel, and you might be, if I tell you the story, you interpret it the way you want, that
sure.
Somebody, I don't know who or what, Angel, call it what you want. If this was a movie, you would say it's a movie, but it's a great movie scene because it would fit in a movie, okay, but not in real life.
Got it.
Almost how I met my wife. I met her standing in line at LaGuardia Airport, New York, okay, 38 years ago. We were standing in line in a taxi line, and she was a very pretty girl and a smile that could kill.
Yeah.
And
That's
we're
a great
married.
story.
We're married. I mean, it's the beginning of the story.
How random, huh?
If you want to meet the love of your life, go to New York City's LaGuardia airports, great airport, stand in line at the taxi. You never know who's going to be there.
That's true.
Anyway, yeah, I hope this doesn't cause a flood. Like that. It probably won't. I'm not that well known. So anyways, but going back to this, it was one of the events I just mentioned that I kept going to, right? These network events, which were all, there was nothing about ever real estate. They're all technology based, basically, or or starting small businesses, food related.
Okay.
They were not real estate related. And there was this young man in his mid-30s just starting a real estate business. He really had no reason of being there, no more than you, because I know you're not in real estate. You just wouldn't have gone. It's like you going to a dental convention. I mean, why would you? It doesn't relate to. It just doesn't relate to what you do. Unless there's some peculiar personal reason, but it wasn't from a business point of view. It doesn't relate to what you do, which is understandable. So we pick where we go, what relates to what we do, generally speaking. Generally.
Yeah.
So I guess he was curious. It was 8:00 at night. I don't know why he should have been there. He really shouldn't have been there. But he just listened. He didn't have much to say. He said, I'm in real estate, and that was it. And he's only in his early 30s, mid-30s then. This was about 3.5, 4 years ago. And he at the end of it, I reached out to him, and we became friends. Not friends. We became acquaintances. It's not true. And then I asked him a little more. We met. I said to him how business was going. He says, well, it was going well, and he was growing, so it was going in the right direction. But again, some people say that he came there to meet me and I came there to meet him. That's the spiritual part, because it makes no sense. We should have been there. It is kind of weird. You know what I mean?
It's very similar to you meeting your wife randomly, right?
It's very random, serendipitous, coincidental. It's the kind of thing you see in a movie and say, okay, it happens in the movies. That's cool. It makes for good drama or a good story.
But that doesn't happen in real life, right?
But that's not, I mean, the chances of that happening in life I'm not saying it can't happen. Of course it does.
Right.
Because every fiction is based on some threads of inspiration and truth. It's just that it's exaggerated to make it entertaining and exciting.
Right.
But it's based on something. Nothing comes from literally nowhere. Maybe unless it's a total fairy tale, which that maybe comes from nowhere. But even that may come from somewhere. But then it's exaggerated to make it entertaining, which is great, which is what you want.
Sure.
Because real life itself could be very boring.
Correct.
It's very boring.
Yeah.
But you don't want to just watch everybody's day in and day out. I mean, it's done. It's got to be entertaining for a book or for a couple hours or a movie. The bottom line is people got to, no matter, it can be sad, happy, but it's got to be entertaining. Otherwise, what are you going there?
Right.
That's a book or a movie, whatever. So it's a metaphor, but it's not real life, of course. But that's the great part of it. So what happened is we befriended, but this is real life. We befriended each other a little bit, and it turns out that he needed some what's the word? Private. I'm all mixed up today. Sorry, there's so much going on. Private financial help to grow, to buy more properties, which. That's what he did. That they were successful. They're growing. It was a good, I wouldn't say problem, but good challenge of any business. They were growing. They need more funds and all that.
Okay,
that's a good problem, as the cliche says. And I helped find him quite a bit through people I knew who invested with him. He was good. And then at some point, we were only together about a year. At some point, I didn't work for him. I was paid out of remuneration. And then at some point, his business was growing, so he was finding properties that were not on the market. That's called off market or pocket listing, which exist everywhere.
Okay.
But he was doing it himself. He was doing it himself, which he was. But the business was growing, and he was unable to manage everything. Him and his partner. He had a partner as efficiently and expeditiously as he wanted. He asked me. I said, "Could I help him?" And he said, "Yes, of course." And I did. And I found him some opportunities, remunerated. And then I realized I have a skill. I could do it. And I went beyond him. I had no particular car. I went beyond him and learned it and found other investors. And then 3.5 years later, I found investors. I was responsible, not myself, for millions of dollars of property investments. And that started and also partnerships with others. So I that's the business development doing for investors, and that was my expertise. Once I understood a little bit what people were looking for, I hone in on that.
Okay, so just give us a little bit of a detail of, say, like a particular, say, like hidden gem kind of deal that you found?
Well, I don't know if
I know you did a lot.
At the end of the day, real estate is that people have to, they put their money where their mouth is. Either they buy it or they don't. You don't get paid an agent unless they buy the property, the transition gets. Otherwise,
right.
That's the thing about real estate. It's not a weekly thing, but you can do well, possibly, transactions. So it's just a multitude of things that I've properties. Once I understand an investor's criteria, whether it's unit or 20, I have to go out and find it. And then it depends on many, many variables. It depends on many variables. I don't know if the word is gem. The word is a long-term opportunity because real estate is a long-term game. To be successful, I think you got to, generally people tell you 10, 15, 20, 30. It's a long-term game. So when people are young, it doesn't happen overnight. You got to be risk adverse. And my father used to joke, but it's not a joke. When I was a very young kid, he was in real estate for a while. He used to show me big buildings, like big apartment buildings, 40, 50 stories. And most people, when you look at that, you say, okay, the guy built it. I mean, how did he build it? How'd you get that money? It just seems so overwhelming.
Right.
It is overwhelming when you think of it. At 10 million, 30 million. I mean, it's just really overwhelming, overpowering. And he says he's bankrupt, So my father, which is very true. So my father used to say, you can make a lot of money, you can lose a lot of money, but you can't pay the rent in real estate. And that's very true with a lot of real estate. And today maybe it's changed. People are looking for cash flow, but it was a struggle, if you know what I mean. You could do very, very well. People do, obviously. I mean, until technology exploded, most millionaires, most successful people are from real estate, if you notice. It's not just the famous Trump. It's a lot of other people who have made a lot of money in real estate. There's no question about it, everywhere, from Nevada, California, everywhere.
Right.
But technology has also now become an explosive area and opportunity for a lot of people. It's also a lot easier to get into, and a lot more cost effective to get into. So that's why I get into it. Real estate is difficult.
Real estate is very capital intensive. Like you need to have a lot of money or investors.
Yeah, but you could find it. But it's a physical thing, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
If you're building something and you need all these supplies, you need all the products, or if you're buying, you need to renovate. Yeah, it's a physical thing. But that's why a lot of people like it. It's still a physical thing.
Well, you have something even when things go bad.
Exactly.
Like if you've got an app and you're investing, tons of money in an app and the app just goes fizzle, well, now gone. You don't have anything. It's gone. Right.
And real estate, like during COVID, it didn't get the virus. It doesn't get the virus, real estate. So
no.
It's a building. And people did very well generally with real estate. Unlike, unfortunately, other industries, other areas of our economy, restaurants and bars, which suffered. It's terrible. Real estate did not. They exploded. They exploded generally. Renovations were big because people couldn't travel. They couldn't do anything else.
Right.
So that's part of real estate. People were renovating, understandably. They were buying equipment, stuff for their home or their cottage or whatever the hell it was. So, but it's not for everybody. It's a risk for you have to be a certain personality because there are many very people, I'm sure.
Yeah, like if you don't want to be a homeowner or you're slightly uncomfortable doing like little things around the house, you probably don't want to get into real estate.
Also, you have to deal with tenants. It's a tremendous responsibility, Jeff.
Yeah. Totally.
And you have to be risk adverse. So it's far from for everybody. There are a lot of very successful people, I'm sure will tell you, tell me, they don't have much to do with real estate. They don't, or big responsibility, big in the beginning, if you buy a little apartment for 6 units or 4 units, you take care of the tenants or something. It's work. It's okay. As long as you're into it.
Right.
It's not for everybody, like a lot of things. If you're into it, phenomenal.
Right.
People are very successful.
So what other sorts of deals are you brokering, or what other kinds of business development deals are you putting together these days outside of real estate?
Architects in Montreal find more customers.
Okay.
And they mainly work with the real estate firm, but they can work in renovations.
Right.
I'm helping. I work with a medical company in
interesting.
In the States to help them find out of the box strategic partnerships that relate to wealth and health. They're not directly related. They're an online company. That's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing. Focus. I do that. Do real estate, and my expertise is, as it says very simply, is business development expert. So if somebody can come to me, I can almost handle, as long as it's not too technical or too academic, because that's not in my wheelhouse, of course.
Right,
That's
right.
not, but I can handle, and I have many different industries. If you look at strategic partners, medical, architects, Heidi Klum, the guy was in the gentleman was in the clothing business then. There was an app then I handled. There was a guy who I helped work out of California, really, Sacramento, finding him. He was an app too for restaurant reservations in the during COVID, before COVID. I'm sorry, before COVID, obviously. And one might say, what does Myron have to do with it? I don't. And the quick, interesting story that he was a beautiful guy out of Sacramento. The company was called Seat Ninja. They don't exist anymore either. I think he sold out.
Okay.
But it was before COVID. And the reason how I got that gig, which the story is that I heard him being interviewed on an entrepreneurial podcast on Cyrus Radio.
Okay.
Listen to this. One evening, loved it. He was looking funding opportunity, telling his story, typical thing like any of the entrepreneurial shows that you see on TV, the famous Mr. Wonderful, all those shows.
Right.
But this was a smaller version on radio. And I got his contact information. I went to the website the next morning, sent him an email and all that. And he contacted me. He said, "How the hell did you find me?" And I said, he's in Sacramento, California, and just the other side of the world, North America, like you are all.
Right.
And East Coast. And I said to him, "I heard you on the show." He said, "You're right." I said, "You said you're looking for whatever, help. Are you?" He said, "Yeah." And that's how I started with it. Nice guy, phenomenal guy.
Yeah. Did it work out?
Yeah, it did for a while, for sure. Yeah, he was good. He was good for a while. And then he moved on to other things, but he was a phenomenal individual. I love him.
That's awesome. So like every time you're out there, you've got the radar out, right? You're like, "Oh, I can help." So I think you've got a good attitude, right? You've got this sort of like spidey sense about I know how to help people do a certain thing, right?
Right. But I also don't mince words. If I don't think I can help, it's not about the money. I will tell you.
Totally. Yeah. But that's good though. I mean,
if I can't bring value, Jeff, I will tell you, I can't figure
this isn't going to work out.
A lot of things I can't do.
Right. Sure. You can't fix a web page. No.
I can't. No, I can't. A lot of things I can't do. So whether you pay me $1, you pay me 1,000, $1 million, if I can't bring value or bring success to you for me,
right,
then I'm not the man or the woman. I'm not the person.
Yeah. I get it.
And a lot of things I cannot do.
Right. So as we wrap up, I want to make sure we close out and get you onto your next thing. It's almost 3:00 on the East Coast. So how can people best get in touch with the Jackhammer?
I'd love to hear from anybody on LinkedIn.
Okay. I'll put your LinkedIn profile link in the show notes.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no worries.
And I just like to say what I always say, which is important, because at the end of the day, especially when you're 70 going on 50, I operate with a sense of urgency, but I always did. So I want to just say this, if I may. I call it to everybody. When I talk about, I emphasize I'm living proof. I'm not 23. I've been through hell and back, reinvented myself at 67. So let me preface it with that. So age is but a number, as I'm living with you all, as you can see. So whatever your age or circumstances, it's never too early or too late to pursue your dream. But following this podcast with Jeff, I want you to make a list, whoever's listening, of 3 things you want to accomplish. But you got to do it. The first is something you want to do now, right now. The second is something you want to do, let's say, this year. And maybe it'd be tough because there isn't much time left in this year. I understand we're in the final quarter. Right. So maybe it rolls into early 24. And the third is something you want to do the next 3 years. Then take a leap and start with your right now goal right now. This is the most important thing. If you're going to procrastinate, you're only fooling yourself. So that's okay. You can do that. But whether you're 20 or you're 90, there's going to come a time when it's going to be too late. So for your second and third goal, start your planning with specific steps to achieve them right now. And the only thing holding you back is you. It's not a platitude. I've been to hell back. I know that. It is true. Remember, I was 67 when I decided to become, when I say a business development expert, focus on real estate and other things. So you're never too young or too old to pursue your goals and your dreams. But, and this is the whole thing, you got to start now. So it's all a call to action. You can stumble, fail, close the door, but because action will bring action. It will bring something.
Right.
Nothing brings nothing. It's a cliche, I know, but it's true. Cliches are there for a reason. They're true. That's why they're repeated so often to make you crazy. It's like the word mindset. It's crazy because people are sick of hearing it, but it's true. Okay, it's a simple thing.
Yeah.
So all these don't mean anything. They're just words. They mean nothing unless you execute. And if you don't, that's fine. Whatever you want to do, it doesn't matter. If you want to travel around the world, that's cool. Okay, but do what you got to do to give yourself the travel. I don't care what you want to do. It's what you want to do, not me. And because there's going to come a time you can't do it. And just because you're 20, you don't have forever. That's it.
The other thing that I'm going to say I took away from listening to you chat, there was two things that you were doing. So one time you were at an airport in a line at a taxi cab, waiting for a taxi, and you met your wife through just random.
LaGuardia Airport in New York. Love that airport.
Had you been on your couch that day and decided not to go to New York, you wouldn't have met your wife.
But I go one step further.
Yes.
If I didn't introduce myself, I wouldn't have met her.
Exactly.
He turned around, or I made, I think, the first thing, because she has a smile that could seduce you, and I had to go up to her. Remember, I didn't know her from a hole in the wall.
Right.
And it turns out she also speaks French too. She's from France, and very few Americans speak French. Montreal does. And family has a country house here an hour from Montreal. This is ridiculous, rare coincidence that you'd only see in a movie. But I had to have the balls to go up to her.
Right.
And her maybe to say, look, either politely, I'm busy, I don't want to talk to you, or whatever the case may be, right? Nothing would happen. But I have the attitude is, all she could do is say no. So what's the big deal?
That should be a chapter of a book. All that can happen is no.
And you don't know what you're missing.
That's right. That's right. And the other thing, the other time you got off your couch was when you were, in that paralyzed with self-doubt and depression. You weren't sitting on the couch. You weren't watching TV, were you? No. You were getting out there. Not much was happening.
Nothing was happening, actually.
Nothing was happening, but you were out there.
Yeah.
For 10 years. I was depressed too. And depression is more about isolation than anything else.
Absolutely.
So if you're depressed and paralyzed with self-doubt, the worst thing you can do is sit on the couch and watch TV.
And that's the easiest thing you could do too.
It's the easiest thing to do. Yes.
The hardest thing is to get your ass out of there and do something. You got to, for your own self, for nobody else.
Right. Do it out of selfish reasons. I got it. Yeah. Find some pants, get off the couch and do it.
But go out.
Go out.
Not to the bar I'm talking about. You got to go out somewhere.
Some sort of business is happening.
Well, you go to, there's networking events and meetups in every city in North America.
Every day. Right.
I don't know about every day, but they're quite up today now. Now that we're back full blast, there was a time with COVID.
At least once a week, maybe more than once a week.
Yeah, they're all the time.
Yeah, they're all the time. So,
Las Vegas has them. LA, every major city in North America has their own version.
Right.
Everybody.
So get out there.
It's very commonplace.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Myron, this has been a blast.
Been a blast.
Thanks for sharing your story. It was inspirational. You're doing very well. You're doing very well. I hope I'm as mentally sharp and active and ready to rock and roll as you are when I'm your age.
It's up to you. Remember that.
It is up to me. Thank you, Myron. I appreciate you hanging out with me for a little while. Don't hang up.
Thank you, sir.
Don't hang up just yet. I'm going to hit stop and I'll chat for you for 2 more minutes.
My pleasure.
Thanks for taking the time to ride along with us on another episode of Vroom Vroom Veer. For podcast info and show notes, be sure to head over to vvveer.com. That's VVER.com. Man, that's fun to say. And we'll catch up with you next time here on Vroom Vroom Veer.